Alright y'all, welcome back to the channel and to some more turkey patterning, and today we've got another new load that we've never tested before, and it's one that could give us a pretty nice pattern, or it could be a little bit on the disappointing side as well. I really just don't quite know how it's going to perform yet. But for the shell I've brought out here today, I picked up some of these, some Winchester Double X 20 gauge shells. They're a 20 gauge 3-inch 1 and 5/16 ounce load of number 4 shot, moving about 1200 feet per second. And I know a bunch of you guys have really wanted to see some of the 20 gauge Winchester Double X turkey shells, and when I found these the other day on the shelf, I had to pick up a box and see what they could do. Now, if you haven't seen, we've tried the 20 gauge Winchester Longbeard XR shells quite a few times, and they have pretty much all been terrible. Winchester's quality control on their 20 gauge turkey shells seems to be all over the place. So I don't know how these are going to do in the grand scheme of things. Plus, they are a number 4 shot in a 20 gauge shell. So what kind of pellet count are we going to have, and is that really going to affect our pattern density at all? If we see a much more open pattern, is it really not going to look great with that low of a pellet count? I don't know. There's a chance these do really well, but there's also a chance they're really disappointing. So I guess we'll just have to see what they actually do when we put them on the paper. And as for the setup we're going to be running them through today, I brought out the Stevens 301 20 gauge, but I threw in this choke, which is relatively new on the channel. This is the HS Strut UnderTaker 572 constriction turkey choke. We've tested it once before a few weeks ago with some pretty decent results, but I figured since this is a 572 constriction and it is a bare bones basic simple choke with no fancy porting or straight rifling or anything, this combination might be a good place to start with these double X shells, since they are a lead 4. There's nothing fancy to mess with the wad that's in there, or we're not going to be over constricting these, or at least we shouldn't be at 572. So we'll see what this combination can actually do for us. And as for today's test, everything is set up the same as usual for one of these turkey pattern tests. I've got the turkey paper at 40 yards, and I've got the chronograph so we can get our velocity from the shell. So let's get you guys a view of this target and take this shot and see just what we can get for a starting pattern out of these 20 gauge double X4s through the 301 and the HS Strut 572. I don't know exactly what we're going to see yet, but let's head over here and take the shot and see what kind of pattern they give us. Alright, so that shell gave us 1140 through the chronograph. The box claim is 1200, so we are a little bit under that claim, but I believe that 301 has a 26-inch barrel, and the factory probably tested it out of a 28 or something, so that probably makes sense. And 1140 is a plenty good enough velocity for a lead number 4. We're definitely not pushing it too fast, that's for sure. So looking pretty decent for velocity up here, but what kind of a pattern did they actually give us down at 40? Let's go check it out and see what we got. Alright, so now we're down here at our 40-yard paper, and this is what we got. And I gotta say, it is definitely a little bit more towards the disappointing side. Now, was it completely unexpected to see this? Probably not in the grand scheme of things, but I guess let's take a look at what we do have here. Now, yes, we do have a dead bird. There are 2 through the brain and several more down the spine. So good enough for 40 yards? Sure, you would have absolutely gotten that bird. But I think we found the absolute limitations right here. Any farther than that, and I don't know that you would have gotten that bird. Now, again, these are a lead number 4 pellet in a 20 gauge, so we don't have a super high pellet count to work with. And when the pattern is that broad, it definitely leaves a lot to be desired. There are some big voids in there, especially right over here on the right side, bottom corner of this turkey paper. I mean, that's a massive hole right there. And in our core area, which I think is kind of sort of right around that bird's head, or maybe just on top of it, would technically be the center of our core, we really don't see much of any tightening or a hot zone of pellets in the middle there either to work with. It's just kind of a broad swath of shot across the paper. Now, these double X shells are not loaded the same as the Longbeard shells with the shot lock technology, buffer material, waxy stuff. These are a buffered and plated shell, so that does help in some sense, but it's just not going to be able to hold the pattern out here. Now, if we move down in constriction a little bit, I think we can still see a little bit better out of these shells, especially with how the wad looks. I definitely do not think we're over constricting these yet at all. So overall here, is this a pattern that I'm looking to use in my turkey setup? Probably not. Is it good enough to get you a bird out to 40 yards in this combination? Probably so. I would probably keep it to 30 yards and you'll be just fine. But I think this is the absolute limit for these. And I guess we'll have to see what they do as we actually constrict them down a little bit. Can we get a little bit better out of them or not? So it's definitely not a great pattern today, that's for sure. But was it totally unexpected either? Probably not, considering what these shells are. So yeah, technically they are usable, but definitely not the ideal turkey shell so far, for me anyway, in a 20 gauge. But I think we can still get better with these. So we'll see how they do as we continue to test them. Okay, and here's the wad from that shell, and it is definitely nothing fancy. It looks very much like your basic Winchester style wad that they would use in a longbeard shell or a double X shell or anything like that. Definitely nothing special. There's nothing stuck down in there. We had one pedal that opened up a little bit farther than the others over on the left, but nothing I'm concerned about or nothing out of the normal for these. And as you can see, very little damage, if anything at all, just a little bit of scuffing up here on the tips. So we are not over constricting these at all yet, I wouldn't say. Based on how this wad looks, I still think we can go down in constriction quite a bit and potentially get a little bit tighter of a pattern out of these. So the wad looks very much normal. Alright y'all, well, what did you think about that pattern right there? It is definitely nothing fantastic or nothing super special to write home about. Is it technically good enough to get you a turkey with that specific combination out to 40 yards? Yeah, probably so. If I had to use that combination, I would probably stick to 30 and in personally, but it is still technically good enough. Now, I definitely think we can get a little bit better out of these than that with the right choke constriction. I think we've still got some wiggle room to work with there, even though they are a lead number 4 pellet. Maybe we can still condense that pattern down just a little bit tighter, especially since we don't have the pellet count that we would in a 12 gauge shell. So overall, I think it's probably about what most of us expected to see. Definitely nothing great in the turkey pattern world, but it didn't do anything crazy unexpected for what it is either. So I guess let me know your thoughts down below. Is that about what you expected to see? Were you a little surprised one way or the other? Have you tested any of the 20 gauge double X shells? And if so, what kind of results have you seen from them? And is there another setup or choke combo that you want to see us run these shells through? Let me know all that down below. But with that being said, I've got some more testing to get done for you guys today, so I'm going to get back to it. As always, we have the channel Instagram as well as the mailbox where you can send stuff if you'd like. All that information will be in the description if you're interested in it, but I'm going to get back to it, so I'll see y'all in the next one.